Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I would like to introduce and welcome Grandmother Nancy Andry, who is Algonquin and of French origin or heritage. She is a grandmother, or she's acknowledged as a grandmother and an elder in her communities, indigenous communities in Canada. And she has followed the red road since her childhood. And she is a sun dancer and sacred pipe carrier. She also has served as a facilitator of Native Women Circle in the state prison for 17 years. And she was a person who owned her own business that has a lot to do with horses, as far as I know. But that was before, yes. And until today, she is including the horse medicine into her speeches and teachings in a lot of institutions, schools, and health centers. Because she is as well very well known storyteller, educator, and teacher on Native American culture. Welcome once more, Grandmother Nancy. I'm very happy to see you. Thank you very much to participate and for participating in this project. I hope I didn't miss anything of your very rich biography.
Well, you know, it sounds so more than I am. I'm just a humble grandmother who's been fortunate enough to have amazing elders who taught me on my journey along the red road, and for me, work with children, with animals, with learning from the elders has been really the guiding lines for my life. And of course, having the teachings from my Algonquin heritage, where the men are the keepers of fire and the women are the keepers of water. And I'm so glad that there's becoming such an awareness about the plight of water right now worldwide. It's global. And it seems that the indigenous people who still live close to nature are the ones who have always been the guardians and the protectors of the water. And now we need all the women globally to bring the awareness, because in many respects, no disrespect to our male relatives, but they've overlooked the way we think, which is the way we think is 7 generations ahead. We don't think about just our grandchildren, but we think about our grandchildren's great-grandchildren, and what are we doing to the environment and leaving for these future generations, because once an aquifer is polluted, it's impossible almost to bring it back. And we've seen the privatization of water, where you're buying a bottle of water, which is something that our great creator, and it doesn't matter in which way you speak to him, this was a gift to the people for survival. Nothing can live without water. When we vision quest, we go out for 4 days and 4 nights with no food and water, and we pray. And it's very easy to go pretty much without the food, but along about the 3rd day, you're really thinking about maybe a sip of water. And so we have to think of, if we keep polluting our drinking water, our potable water, we can't exist. So we have to be aware of that all the time.
That's very I think it's more and more well, maybe other way. I think people are getting more and more conscious about what's happening to the water globally. But I really got interested and inspired in this concept that I found whenever I found actually the Sing the Water Song project, the idea that the women are the keepers of the water. Could you please elaborate a little bit to make me understand what does it mean?
I absolutely will do my best to try that. As I said prior to this, in the Algonquin traditions and in most indigenous traditions in North America, and I find this is global, the women were always the keepers of the water and the men were the keepers of the sacred fires. And so the women, when they would go to the water every day, they would sing Thanksgiving prayers to the water. Because think of places in the world, even today, where people have to walk, say, 5 miles to get a half a bucket of water, and it might not necessarily be the cleanest water, but way far back, before the great ships came across the ocean, the women of North America, the indigenous women, were singing these prayers to the water. And then when the boarding school era came and people were forbidden to sing their sacred songs and do their sacred ceremonies, those ceremonies were kept underground to keep them alive, because you could be punished for practicing your spirituality, not a religion. Religion and spirituality are different things. And so there were women who kept that ceremony alive. And then when the American Indian Religious Freedom Act of 1978, people were allowed to start bringing out these ceremonies. And in 2002, Dr. Emoto came to America, to Canada actually, to the reserve of Kitigan Zibi in Quebec, Canada, which was the reserve of Grandfather William Commanda, keeper of the 7 Fire Prophecy Belt, the Jay Treaty Belt, and the Friendship Belt. And at that time, the grandmothers who were present, unlike our European ancestors, indigenous women in North America always had equal rights with the men. And so they determined, because Dr. Emoto was coming from Japan, that that song would be released to all the women at the gathering. And there were people from literally all over the world who came to that gathering for the song to go back with them and be taught to women, so that prayers, and people may not think that prayers are powerful, but they are, so that women all over the world could sing that song. And the words to that song are Nibi Wabo Endayan Aki Miskwi Nibi Wabo. And as closely as I can translate it, it means water is the life's blood of Mother Earth. Water is the life's blood of our own bodies, because our own bodies are, 85, 90% water. Water is like when we're about to enter this world, our mother will break her water. So, we're in vitro in water. So water is probably the most essential thing in our lives. And we have seen nothing but disrespect for the water globally because of open pit mining, deforestation, dumping industrial waste, ships at sea dumping waste and what have you in the waters. And now we're seeing the suffering of that. We see whales beached and if you open them up, they're full of plastics and human waste. And this has become such a critical situation that when I got the opportunity through Victoria Cummings and women from the Women in Film in New York City, and a group of young women that we were working with, that we were doing teachings and what have you with, we prayed very hard and said that water song should be sung by women everywhere. It's for all the women, and it's for the water, because the water is in such peril at this time. And what are we going to do? All right, here in the US, I don't buy bottled water. I refuse to do it. Mm-hmm. We're paying for water, but what if that one bottle of water became such a scarce commodity that people, there should be no privatization of water. And the chairman of the board of Nestle said, what right do people think they have to free water? Water was a gift from our higher being. We call him Gishimani too, you know, Lord God, whoever you want to call him, because everywhere in the entire globe, people believe that there's a higher power out there that helps us. And we're taking this gift that was given freely, and people are making money out of it and going in and taking water, so that in the places where they're going, the people who live there don't have access to this water the way they should.
That's really true. And this is interesting that you said about the privatization of water, because in 2010, the UN actually claimed it to be a human right. So this is this very, I don't know if interesting or danger clash between treating the water as commodity, as you said, and as a human right, or as you said as well, this gift to life, or a gift of life, because without this water, we do not have any living creature, at least here on Earth, as far as we know.
Yep.
This is as well very interesting. I didn't know that it was actually Dr. Emoda that was involved in the history of the water song.
Because he was coming all the way from Japan to meet with Grandfather Commanda, and he brought 20 people with him from Japan. The women were saying, I wasn't part of that. I wasn't considered an elder at that time, to the best of my knowledge. And Irene Wawaite Jerome had been the keeper of that ceremony when everything was underground. And then another lady, Kathleen Duchesne, said, we need to bring it back out. And it was the grandmothers who made the decision that all the women at that gathering should be gifted that song. And we were instructed, take it out in small groups, you know, teach it in small groups. So, but when this opportunity came to get it out in a broader way by making that little video, and we did not do the ceremony, we only taught the song, because it would not be proper to do the ceremony. And I personally had to stand in my Medewan Lodge and in front of about 270 people ask, is this is what I want to do? Is there anybody who thinks that this isn't the right thing to do? And of course, I learned from Grandfather William very early on that when you're trying to do something constructive, there's always going to be somebody who will criticize what you do. But we have been really careful. We have never taken any kind of financial things, no money other than raising the money to make the video, which was difficult to do. we refuse to allow this to go anywhere where they're charging money. There are a lot of people have asked, can we do this with the song? Can you? And we've said, no, absolutely not. Because the song was a gift from the women of the North to the women of the world. And that's sacred. You cannot put a price tag on that type of thing. And so we've been very careful to make sure that there was never any financial gain involved. And all we've simply asked is, you know, the women to sing that water song each day. And I've heard all excuses with the women who lived in cities. Oh, I don't have time, and, you know, I can't get to the water. Well, do you take a shower? You can sing that song in the shower if you need to. Do you give your baby a bath? You can sing that song when you give your baby a bath. Do you have plants that you water every day? You can sing that song to the plants, and the plants like to be sung to. If you're lucky enough to be near a body of water, or particularly a body of water that has been polluted, then yes. And it's amazing when you get a group of women that go down and sing to that water, that little song, that simple little song. It's so easy to learn that amazing things happen. And, you know, people say, oh, come on, that's not so. But, you know, having done this since 2002, I have seen the results of this. And no matter where I traveled, I always managed to get a group of women together who would learn the song and sing the song. And then my prayer is always that they continue to sing the song every day. And I don't want to hear that excuse that I have no time to sing the song. Everyone, all the women have time to sing that song. And then I've had a lot of men say to me, well, why can't we sing the song too? And I go, well, traditionally it is the woman's song to sing, and the men are the ones who protect us when we sing the song. But, you know, my Lakota brothers and sisters have taught me, once a song is on the air, it's on the air. But since in our tradition, women are the caretakers of the water, it's really incumbent on the women to sing the song.
So there's
So,
particular way in which you're supposed to perform the song.
yes, I'm really glad you asked that question. I had an amazing mentor and teacher. Her name was Louise Wawaite. And I had asked Louise to teach me the song prior to that gathering. And she was a hard teacher. She'd make you think about things. And so we used tobacco as a prayer offering. So we went down to the lake and we gave the lake tobacco. And she said all the different things about water, which I won't go into. It's a long teaching. And then she turned to me and said, so how do we sing the song? And I said, Louise, I just gave you the tobacco. She says, oh no, there's a way you need to sing this song. You need to go back up and think about it. So back up, I went to my tent. We were all camping. There were 3,500 people at that gathering. And I lit my sage and my cedar, my sacred herbs, and we engulf ourselves in that. We do what we call smudging. And I began to think about water and all the different things about water. My body's water, you know, without water, we cannot really exist. The animals can't exist. The plants can't exist. When we come into the light way, our mother breaks her water. And I'm thinking, well, how am I supposed to sing this song? And she was a very precise teacher. And as I was praying, people were coming into the camp, and I had my eyes closed. And I heard the children laughing. And I said, oh, wait a minute here. I think I know how we're supposed to sing this song. And I went back and my adopted sister, Faye Hollywood, who was from Charlotte Lake, Abajawan, Charlotte Lake Village in Ontario, Canada. And she and Louise were sitting there drinking a cup of coffee. We all love coffee. And Louise said to me, so how are you supposed to sing the song? And I said, I think we sing to the water the way we'd sing to our babies, like a lullaby. And she kind of grinned and she says, you're getting too darn smart. Come back to the lake. And then she took me back to the lake and taught me this song. And so, yes, we should sing that song with gentleness, the way we would sing to our children, with the gratitude and appreciation for the water. And the water does hear us. This is what people have a difficult time remembering, that the water does hear it. Water has memory. And if you've looked at some of the photographs in Dr. Emoto's book, he kind of proved that in a scientific way. But the indigenous women have always known this, that water can hear us, that we respect and are a part of nature, where so much of dominant society has fought nature. And you can't win over nature. Nature's going to win every time. And so when we teach the song, we teach the women to sing it like a lullaby. And we usually sing that song 7 times. To the 4 directions, to the Mother Earth, to the Father Sky, and for all the living beings. And that includes every living being, from the smallest insect to the mighty eagle, the 4-leggeds, the grass and trees, and every living thing. So the Lakota say, Mitakwiyasin, all my relations. And that means every living thing. It just doesn't mean human beings. And so I believe, my belief is that when we sing that song to the water, all of nature hears that song as well.
This is very beautiful and very insightful as well. So you've said as well that you've seen the song working, and it has been sung since 20 years, which is quite amount of time. So did it work? This decision that grandmother made to somehow preserve water, seeing the situation already in 2002, that was 20 years ago, and people didn't even heard about climate change or didn't think about this. And already the gathering of all people came with this idea to teach women the song that is actually an act to protect the water, which I find very previewing, very observative, which means a lot today, I think. But you have been 20 years ahead, and that's
the indigenous women always had this respect for all the gifts they were giving, be it the water, the animals that were harvested to, to sustain us, the plants that were put there, and all the medicine plants that made medicines. And then when they saw this enormous destruction, and I've spoken with women from Africa and other places where the feelings are very much the same, and in so many places where it's a struggle to get potable water. And we just saw the situation, no matter how hard we were trying, getting worse because the dominant society was refusing to pay attention, and the greed of the dominant society was totally disregarding what the indigenous people of the world were telling them all over Africa, South America, the bush people of Australia and New Zealand, all these indigenous people who were sending out the same warnings. And then, of course, no one wanted to see the reality of climate change, of what was happening because of the pollution and what have you. And now that we've had this worldwide pandemic and people had to lock down and slow down, scientifically, what we've seen, and I'm not, I mean, I believe in science, but I come very much from my heart and from the teachings of my ancestors. But when you see in a short span of time where the pollution has been cut down, that you're starting to see mountains that people could not see for 30 years, and when you're starting to see animals starting to come out because so much of their habitat has been destroyed by industrialization. And there has to be a balance. There has to be an equitable balance. We have to stop relying on fossil fuels because there are better solutions out there. But you see, it's about money and greed. It's like money, money, money. And we have to rethink the way we live. We have to go back to living a little simpler. How much do we really need? You know, does anyone need to have 3 cars in the garage? Does anybody need to have multiple homes? I mean, you are not going to be able to drink money sitting in the bank when the water's gone. So people need to start really thinking about this. And the reason that we decided to make that little video was raise awareness about the water. Let the women pray for the water. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to do this every day. And see the difference in your own self. And this is what you can't really explain it. It has to be experienced to be understood. You know, we can simply offer it up and say, take our hands. If all the women of the world sing this song together, we can change it. We're the mothers. We're sick of sending our sons and daughters off to die in wars that many times are about greed. Many times. You know, and everyone on the planet should have a right to have clean, potable water. From the poorest village up into the mightiest mansion, everyone has that human right to have clean, potable water. And that's all we're really trying to say is, please think about the water. Think about what you're leaving for your grandchildren and your grandchildren's grandchildren. Are we going to be all right? Because if we don't start doing something in this, it'll be gone, and once it's gone. And you know, there are ways to clean streams and what have you. Yes, it's very hard work to do it, and yes, it can be, in many cases, expensive to do it. Well, too bad. Just put on your big boy and girl panties and do it. Because this is what has to be done, and it has to be done now. right now.
That's true. And I have another question about the process of and you know about this the way the film has been made, because between 2002 and 2017, when the decision has been made to actually go global with the movie, actually to make it, why
I'll tell you it.
happened?
I'll tell you exactly what happened. In just before the WODA video was made in February, I had a group of young women here for traditional Native teachings. That's part of my mission in life, is to share the teachings I have had, because Grandfather William told me knowledge unshared is useless knowledge. And so it was winter, there was snow on the ground, and nearby, about 6 miles from my house, is a beautiful lake. And the young girls got up in the morning and we had breakfast, and they said, "Grandmother, where can we go to do a water ceremony?" And I said, "Well, we can go over to Great Hollow Lake." And so we piled in 2 or 3 cars, and in the water ceremony, we Algonquins use copper vessels because we believe copper helps purify the blood. So when we drink in ceremony, we drink out of copper vessels. And of course, tobacco is very essential part of all prayers and all offerings with North American indigenous people. And so we went in with our snow boots on and our skirts, because there's a whole lesson about why we wear a skirt. And so we went over, and we had to trudge through the snow to get to the lake, which was pretty much frozen over. And we sang our water song there. And the park ranger was like looking at what we were doing, but he never said anything, right? And so we came back home, and in the discussion, one of the young women said, I don't even remember which young woman it was, said, "We should do a video." And I was like, hold the phone. I don't know about this, because we were always told to do it in small groups. And then I prayed about it, and I did a fast. I went without food and water for a day. And it was, the time is now that we need to reach all the women everywhere. Ask the elders how they feel about it. And of course, I got in touch with the Wawaite family, because their mom had been, such an instrumental person of keeping that ceremony. And the Wawaites, we brought Solomon down here, and they were like, as long as nothing gets sold, nothing with money. Mm-hmm. And then, as I said, I stood in front of people at my Medewin Lodge, which is our teaching and medicine lodge that I go to in Canada. Regrettably, not this year with the pandemic, because the borders closed and we're not meeting in big numbers. And then it was, how do we do this? Because even with that short little video, the technical equipment and the sound and all of that, you have to have people who know. And Victoria, who's very modest, she is superlative at this. And then we got Nicole Bellincourt, who was our producer, amazing person who got in a wetsuit with the cameras in the water and what have you. And my prayer was, let there be women from all 4 directions of the world. 2 grandmothers flew in from Colombia. Mm-hmm. We had local Native people. We had my Hunka sister, Margaret Behan, from the Cheyenne Arapaho Nation, one of the 13 indigenous grandmothers. We had Clara Soaringhawk from the Lenni, the Nape Nation, down in New Jersey. And so there were women from all 4 directions. the day that we were filming this, absolutely one of the most beautiful, physically beautiful women I've ever seen showed up from Nigeria. So, and we had my little girls there, my little Lenape girls, who were 10 up to me, who was the eldest of the group because I am in my 80s. So we had all four directions of women. We had this amazing range in ages of women. And it took us 3 days to get this accomplished. It was filmed right here in the state of Connecticut. Bethany Yarrow, the well-known singer, daughter of Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary, joined us, and she sang by a waterfall. We didn't record it, a beautiful Brazilian water song, because there are water songs all over that the women have been singing. And so it was a big, it was a big decision to do this, because as I said, no matter what you do, there's always going to be somebody that's not happy about it. Well, what Grandfather William and my elders taught me was, if it feels right from your heart and the ancestors are telling you to do it, then do it. And it needs to get done. And to the best of my knowledge, it has been sung in India. It has been sung in China. I went to Austria. We taught the song in Austria at an elders gathering there. I know people from France. And that day when I stood on the beach and was asked to be, because there should be a grandmother present in our way when the song is taught, there were women from 17 different countries, including Israel and Saudi Arabia. So, but this was just a vehicle to get it out there, since technology is, you know, such a new thing. And it's a double-edged sword. There's some terrible things with the technology, but when we use it in a good way, then it's wonderful, just like we're doing here today, to be sitting here and you all the way over there in Poland. So, you know, how wonderful is that?
Yeah. Although the pandemic is, you know, around everywhere globally, we can speak, and that's the technology. Tell me, Grandmother Nancy, and did you go with any message and with the song to any kind of policy makers who are responsible, or whomever or whatever is responsible for the water situation, at least in your community?
I've gotten like one of the local people here who actually has come out and, you know, supported. I do a little native teaching. A friend of mine actually put up a beautiful teepee, and I was very blessed in I think it was 2017. I was invited to the Center for Earth Ethics, which is run by Corinna Gore, the daughter of Al Gore, to go and do the ceremony at their teaching weekend, and had the honor to meet Al Gore, who's one of my heroes. And so, you know, I think what women need to do is they need to start meeting in the small groups if possible, and if not possible, just sing the song. And then, you know, ask permission to go. We've never asked permission. We've just gone and done it. When June Song, the very beloved Buddhist nun who's done all the walks across America, when she ended a walk, I was asked to come and do it on the Hudson River, and that was when Standing Rock was going on. Oh my goodness, it was the coldest day ever. It was freezing, but we steadfastly stood there and did the ceremony and the song. And, you know, I think it would be wonderful to get people in authority involved, and some of them are readily willing to do it. Others, at least here, I can't speak for other places. I know we just gather the women and go to body of water and sing. And as I say, we've been very, very careful never to put this anywhere where money was being exchanged.
Yeah, I understand.
People wanted to take it to film festivals and things like that, and we said no. There's no money involved in this. None of us have taken any money. We were very fortunate because Victoria and Mark Cummings put their own money and people donated enough to just about cover the cost of making the video. So I think there are a lot more women politicians now. I think if we go to them and explain the water song, that I'm optimistic about that.
That's
you know, we're seeing a lot more women politicians now.
True. Look at New Zealand. I think this is the most renowned female prime minister, and that's quite amazing. And as far as I know, the Maori actually gave human rights to the river Whanganui, which was
yes, that's right,
ancestral river, which is very interesting. But what I think is particular in the water song is that it is addressed or invites people globally and women globally, because as far as I know, a lot of this kind of indigenous initiative that protects local river, like I don't know, Dakota pipeline protest, or the Whanganui case, which actually was lasting something about 100 years to get the rights, human rights for the river. Or for example, in Canada, that was, let me remind myself the name of the Jackal Lake and Pipsel area, that they were protected from copper mining. But this is the very first time that I hear about indigenous people, or women actually, that so progressively are going global for and inviting people to their traditional practice in a way, which is very interesting for me. And I think it's a syndrome of something new, maybe.
I think I think that we're in a struggle right now to protect the environment in general. And, you know, so many agreements have been made with indigenous people and then broken. And that horrible, I hate to say this, money talks. So there's been a lot of corruption here. I can't talk about other places because I don't know. To put these pipelines through without the proper environmental studies. And, you know, we just got a wonderful decision that Dakota Access Pipeline has to shut down because the court decided no, the environmental studies and such weren't done. And they have actually said, drain those pipelines, because those aquifers that are involved affect thousands of people, not just indigenous people, but everyone. And so I'm hopeful on that. I was like, oh yes, yay, you know, and let that hold up. And I think that we have to globally put pressure on the people in charge that we don't want things done without good environmental studies, without looking at the long range effects. And only the average citizen can do that. I've had so many people say to me, oh, one person can't make a difference. That is not true. If we all as one person unite, things can change for the better. And I see it starting to happen. And I think, you know, Creator moves in strange ways. I think as hideous as this pandemic is, and the huge, pitiful loss of life globally, that it's made people slow down, take a look at things, look around them a little more because they've been confined, and that go, 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 go all the time has had to slow down. That I am more optimistic now than I have been in many, many, many years that we can make a difference and we can make a change, and that there is the science and technology out there to balance better with nature, that it can be done. But it can't be done when people just sit on the fence and say, oh, one person can't make a difference. The time has come when everyone needs to speak out. And even if it makes you unpopular in some places, too bad. What are you thinking for your children and your grandchildren? Do you have the courage to stand up for Mother Earth? There's a wonderful song, Who's Gonna Stand Up for Mother Earth, that Neil Young did. It's one of my favorite songs. He's quite the environmentalist, and sometimes when I get discouraged, I'll go and pull it up on YouTube, and it is about, as individuals and collectively, making a difference and fighting for our clean water and for our grasslands and our open lands, and maybe learning to live a little more simply like our grandparents and great-grandparents did. And you know what? They survived just fine. And maybe instead of having our children on devices playing games and talking to each other, get their feet out in the grass. Go for picnics in the forest. And you know, I grew up that way. I grew up like in the woods, in the grass, fanatically in love with horses since I could walk. And animals will teach you about nature. If you observe animals and see how they manage, and it's not always, you know, it's not always pretty. Sometimes it's difficult, but there's a balance in it, you see, and we've disturbed the balance, and we need to bring it back.
Very nicely said. Very nicely said. I just want to know a little bit of diagnosis of this dominant society that you mentioned. What is their attitude toward water? How the dominant society, at least in United States, treat water?
I think that the majority of people take it so for granted. They don't think about it at all. And they don't think, you know, they think it's an endless resource that, you know, that's going to be there forever. And they're not looking at the polluted oceans, the polluted rivers, the polluted streams, the polluted rivers and pond. And that they have to look at this in a more realistic way. And I think that singing the water song is a small piece of that. And so we just have to raise awareness. And I really believe that it has to start with the women because we're the life givers.
Thank you, Grandmother Nancy. This is very wonderful to speak to you, and thank you for the insight into this project that is on about water. I'm really happy to have an indigenous voice in it because I think it's supposed to be presented equally with all the other scientific or political or I don't know, connected with economy voices. because it is such an important issue and it relates to all of us. So thank you once more for giving us your insights and participating in this.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Chimigwech in the Algonquin language, which means thank you. And I hope we'll stay in touch. And, you know, to all the ladies out there who watch this, please sing the water song. So I wish you a beautiful day and hope we'll stay in touch. So, Chimigwech.
Chimigwech.